the return of the green highlighter in the thumbnail. It's just for St. Patrick's Day, you know, green. Um, I had something else planned for St. Patrick's Day, but you know, plans just go to shit with world pandemics, don't they? You just don't find the time to pull shit off. Um, I had a green bandana that I was going to, you know, write, "Don't kiss me, I'm Irish, but I don't want your germs" on. Um, so I'll just say the joke instead of doing it. I did have the green bandana out uh, just so that I wouldn't get pinched because I was wearing the wrong color clothing, but it doesn't feel like a St. Patrick's Day. It's the last minute of it right now, and doesn't feel like a St. Patrick's Day at all. Feels like, I don't know, like this is like completely a divergent timeline of shit. Um, so I'm still taking on all the uh, anxieties of all my clients. Uh, I did find out that I will be able to do telehealth and be able to conduct therapy online and do group therapy and be able to do social distancing in that respect instead of having a whole bunch of people who are mandated to do therapy through the justice system or from the DMV all in one really tight enclosed space in groups of more than 10. Um, Instead of doing that, I will be able to have them all call in and they'll see a lot of this coupled with a bunch of themselves talking to each other in group therapy. But that was about the only good part of my day. Seeing people come in for like their last in person session and still just like it was dripping off of them today. Like, why are you guys even running therapy and doing things as if nothing's changed when this world pandemic is going on? Um, you know, a good number of people that I saw today are affected by the restaurants and bars that were shut down, um, ordered closed, except for takeout and delivery. Um, I saw estimates that 20% of workers will be unemployed. Um, and just a few months ago, I was seeing record low unemployment, quote unquote, at like 4%, right? Oh, look, Chrissy says 75% of our economy is retail. 75% of our economy is about to be Amazon.com. Um, and Jamie is in the chat saying, imagine the plague happening today with globalization and diversity. All right. Um, he did leave a really interesting comment on one of, it was my last video. And I'm going to pull it up in a second here. Poseidon says, will Biden's doctors allow him to campaign or will he be kept sealed in a plastic bubble? Um, already, when he won in the first Super Tuesday, he didn't campaign in any of the states that he won. His campaign figured that his name recognition was better than himself showing himself. So, yeah, they're going to keep him in a bubble. And at this length of beard, the whole two-face thing where the one color's on this side, the other color's on that side, it's it's really evident, man. I don't like this lighting. Um, and I think barber shops are going to have to close. So you're going to see a whole bunch of people get scragglier and scragglier as time goes on. Let's see. Jamie says, my point is that in pushing diversity, you will get a diversity of hygiene practices. My standards for hygiene are so much higher than those from Wuhan, which is horrible. Okay. Well, I've got some homeless people that I've known in the past few years that I like to put up against your Wuhan people, and we'll compare to see who can be the dirtier of the bunch. The people that I know made it so that I can't go into a theater not because of coronavirus, but because the smell of buttered popcorn reminds me of dirty sweat socks and it makes me want to throw up. Chris C says, Is it time for Bernie to fold? Um, with the walloping that he's getting, I'd say that it's definitely something that should be considered. Kip says Mad Max days a coming. Maybe not Mad Max level, but World War II level, where everyone was like recycling and uh, yeah, there were like wartime gardens where people were gardening in their backyard for extra food, shit like that. That's going to happen. I'm so glad that we got those championship tomato seeds because we're going to have some awesome fucking beef eater tomatoes from a prize winning tomato. Poseidon says they might cancel all crowd sports and close schools for the rest of the year. Um, yeah, the UFC for the next 3 events at least is going to be crowdless. Um, Chris C says, "Who you got, Biden or Trump?" Right now, I see more and more and more. It's this is really stacked against the Democratic Party. They are their own worst enemy right now, and all of the circumstances that are happening, um, just like the effect of a war. I think this worldwide pandemic is going to be something that nobody wants to change horses midstream on. So, um, Spurgleberry Farm says, "What do you think of the proposed emergency UBI at 1K a month per adult over 18 years old?" Um, that's Andrew Yang's proposal. Uh, I think that if it was paid for by corporations making windfalls of like in the billions and billions, and for that payment, they got the chance to advertise to people to say, "Hey, you got this money because this percent of that money came from us. So you need to respect the fact that we're creating all of this capital that goes back into giving you that UBI." Something like that, I think, might be more workable than Andrew Yang's just give everyone, no strings attached kind of deal. I don't know. Oh, Spurgleberry Farm says Tulsi Gabbard House Resolution 897. Oh, she actually put it in. That's nice. Popcorn Power says Trump just gave everyone a paycheck. Check the news, a la Yang's idea. So he's kind of stealing the carrion out of the mouths of the Democrats, which, you know, as long as it's a good idea and it gets put into place, who cares where it actually came from, right? Right? We don't have to be all uh, partisan about things. I mean, universal health care, it's been actually proposed by people in both parties. I mean, Obamacare at one point was Romney care. So let's see. Poseidon says when the public is in panic for their lives, the ones not scared to go out and vote always vote for the incumbent. A death crisis helps the GOP. Um, yes, and now that we're past the 10-minute mark and we've got people watching, and we got our regulars, uh, I would say it also helps Biden because the way that Bernie Sanders was campaigning, with the grassroots effort, knocking on doors, and also doing rallies all the time, being off the table, um, it's too much for him to go up against the name recognition of Joe Biden. You know, he can't really reach the people that he used to be able to reach. And this has been horrible for his style of campaign. So, yeah, I think his goose is cooked. And Corny got a little blue pukey emoji. I don't know what that means. Um, Chris C says now is not the time for politics. You know, uh, I remember getting stimulus checks from George W. Bush. I don't know if all of you are old enough to remember this, but I remember getting like a $300 check. And I remember spending it well. My brother spent one on a new TV. And back in the day, when those came out, I believe it was still a tube TV. Alan said 500. Let's see. Chrissy says everyone is getting Bitcoin. Now is the time to transition fiat to digital currency. New World Order agenda. Oh my God. I heard Bitcoin crashed. Um, I haven't seen anything on that, but I get a lot of different opinions daily from people, and I got to check up on all of them before I, you know, say for sure. Like I heard that it's going to snow on Thursday and Friday. Haven't looked up the weather report yet, but a couple of people told me that. So let's see. Where was the comment? That it was so awesome. Let's see. By the way, uh, I know now that my girlfriend watches my videos, so I just want to say, um, this video is brought to you by the stockpiling efforts of my girlfriend, Misty, and aka Seek in Shadows, aka Misty the Magnificent, aka Toilet Paper Czar. This is true. She said it, not me. For some reason, the uh, the comment I remember seeing from Jamie Demeter has disappeared off of my video. Do Spruggleberry Farm says you shouldn't advertise your toilet paper stockpiles. You'll be invaded by those who didn't plan ahead. Um, yeah, Jamie, maybe I am looking at the wrong video. Do. Nope. I just had to look at the video rather than the comments thing because YouTube's broken. I was actually looking at the comments on the right video, but I had to actually click on the video to be able to pull it up. So this was Jamie's quote. He says, "Diversity is truly our strength. Open borders and globalization have made it much easier for viruses to spread and last longer, but kumbaya, let us all hold hands under a rainbow for diversity." And that was my Jamie Demeter sarcasm voice. Uh, my reply to that was that the country where coronavirus came from is actually a very homogenous country. And then they hid from us the true nature of how deadly the virus was for a long time, and there was like a cover up about it. And so, I think that had a lot more to do with how bad this pandemic got than you know whether or not we embrace diversity in our culture. But he says that, what do you say? The tool used by the virus to spread was China has horrible hygiene and that we have diversity, liberal principles, and multiculturalism. Good morning, Brian. And so, uh, my response to that is to actually look at this not from a sense of who needs to win this argument, but let's actually look at this. And I would say originally China was the biggest problem in this because of the cover up and because of what Jamie Demeter is saying, horrible hygiene, especially in their wet markets, right? But also, China is probably the leader in how to lock down their own people in order to prevent the spread and like really uh, shut things down because of their culture having this ability to just lock down everything. The totalitarian government that they have the ability to just tell people, stay in your homes or we will really retaliate against you for leaving your home. So, given that we don't have that kind of muscle, we're going to have a little bit more spread than they do because we aren't a totalitarian regime. So, it was horrible when they were covering it up. But now that it's beyond cover up because, Genie got out of the bottle, um, their response is better than, say, Italy, who is not as totalitarian as China. Now, Italy, if you were to compare on the Johns Hopkins uh, command center website, uh, Italy has the worst death rate per confirmed infected. And these are numbers that, like, I ran the numbers here. China is saying that they have like a 4% death rate now, right? And they're making videos of their nurses taking off masks, like, we did it, we flattened the curve, and now it's just going to be normal days ahead. But that's like George W. Bush um, saying that mission accomplished on a giant banner. Uh, let's see. Corny's trying to tag me in his comments so I see them. He says, "Do you own a gun for self-defense?" I own many things for self-defense, and some of those guns that I used to show off for self-defense are actually on my channel. I shot at different effigies of YouTubers' faces just to make a joke. It probably is not something that I would have done now, but you know, I did that. Misty is more into guns than I am, but if the people who were potentially going to loot me for TP didn't come with a gun, then they would have to come with something large enough to take me down. You know, but there are much better places to get TP than my home. Um, Restaurants and businesses and whatnot are having TP stolen from them left and right. People just go in the bathroom of some place of business and steal it. Not like by gunpoint or anything. They just take it off the roll and stick it in their pocket, or they take the entire roll. That's what's going on. Let's see. Popcorn Power says you can always eat your girlfriend for protein if the quarantine goes long. Keep her close for that reason. Um, the loner says TP shortages are what free Bibles are for. Um, I don't recommend anyone wipe their butt with the pages of a free Bible. Hear me out here. So somehow they treat those pages so that they're like the thinnest, like magazine style paper, and they're very sleek. And it'd be like wiping your ass with wax paper. Don't do it. Eh, It's just you'd have to go through half the book to actually clean your butt. Let's see. Poseidon says, I thought my pangolin comment was the best one of the week for your vids, in my humble opinion. Okay. I don't know why Spurgleberry Farm thinks I have a t-shirt cannon. Corny is equating the communism and cover up of China and the Wuhan COVID 19 virus to Chernobyl. I get it. I see the parallels. The problem is politicians in China needed to save face. Actually, I think they were more just worried about no one's going to buy their products anymore if they think that viruses come from China and the products might be tainted. Just like you don't buy toys from China because they might have lead, you know. Um, that creates fear and just prejudice towards Chinese products for years to come. Poseidon says, for all we know, 100 million have already died in China. You know, I don't know that I would notice 100 million people in China being missing until the existing stockpiles of cheap crap from China started disappearing. Like when we stopped seeing cheap crap from China, I'd be like, hey, where did all those Chinese people go? Let's see. Popcorn Power says Italy gives us better data than China. China is just like, okay, so now, because you brought up that point, even though I wanted to talk about the primaries, I'll go back to talking about coronavirus right now, okay? Let's see. It's so great of them to let me live stream from my phone and be able to flip my camera around. All right, so we got the total confirmed cases right there, right? And we've got the total deaths right there, right? And don't pay attention to the total recovered, just total confirmed and total deaths, right? Doing the math off the Johns Hopkins website, China is reporting a 4% death rate. If you get the virus, 4% of you are going to die. If you are looking at Spain's numbers, um, they're actually pretty good because Spain has 533 deaths for almost 12,000 cases. So you're really well off if you're in Spain. But Italy, you're about 8% likely to die if you get the virus. And yeah, I trust Italy's numbers a little bit more. And you can do the math yourself. It's like 2,503 deaths, and they only have 31,506 confirmed cases. Now, it could be that they don't use their testing kits until people are severe, and that's why the number of deaths per confirmed case is so high. But I don't know. I mean, people have been uh, really dogging the U.S. for not having testing kits and whatnot. Um, I think we need to wait another 2 weeks to see what the U.S. death rate is because we're lagging behind, and we really have to wait and see, how many people who are infected right now actually die, right? But as of right now, it's like 1.6% death rate here in the US, and that could be a reflection of us having better health care than Italy, or it could be a reflection of we just need to give the virus a little bit of time to do its business, and work its magic, and then we'll see similar death rates. Uh, I think luckily, at least, nothing seems to beat Italy's 8% death rate. And you don't hear the news turning these numbers into death rates like I am right now. You don't hear this from the news like, hey, the average of all these different countries reporting is 4% pretty much dead. Right now, the total confirmed cases is nearing 200,000 worldwide, and the total deaths is nearing 8,000. That works out to about 4,000, or sorry, a 4% death rate worldwide if you just add all the numbers together. I have seen some pretty blunt graphs showing that it's closer to 15 or 20% if you're over 80 years old. So, like if they're over 80, it's a 1 in 5 chance they're going to die. And then over 65, it was like 8%. That's like Italy numbers. And then everything younger than that, it was like dramatically better numbers. But even in my age group, it was almost 0.5% die. So the threat is real. And there's a good chance that uh, all of the numbers are off because the virus transmits so quickly and spreads so quickly. It could be that we all pretty much already had it. You know, don't know. Let's see. Popcorn Power says, when is the Agent of Doubt swimsuit calendar coming out? Uh, is this something that has to do with Pastafarian Dan letting loose that I posed in my underwear on Blog TV years and years ago? Corny says, so that means your TP is safe. Um, you know what makes my TP the most unsafe? And I know my girlfriend's going to watch this, but I'll just say it anyway. Um, my bleeding heart, you know, because I don't like to see people in pain, you know. If somebody were to come with a gun looking for our TP, I'd be like, well, I'll just go on a TP search and find some more TP. You know, I'm probably not going to put up a fight. I know we stockpiled it. I know I bought it. And by stockpile, I mean we have like enough for a month. But I don't think I would put up that good of a fight in order to keep it if it was like a marauding band of gun brandishing toilet paper thieves. Hillary says, I straight up don't believe the Illinois results. Thank you for putting us back on politics. So let's see. Uh, you'd think that with Illinois having Chicago and all the demographics of Chicago, that Biden might have done a little bit better in Illinois. But that Sanders would have been doing a little bit better in Illinois, but he did. Biden won. Um, let's see. Wow, by like 60% right now with 97% in. That is like crazy numbers for Biden to be doing. Like people are not really passionate about Biden. They actually might be passionate about being anti Bernie Sanders more than they are passionate for Biden because they might be thinking, if a socialist wins the nomination, then Trump is going to be reelected. I've heard that line of thinking over and over again. That Bernie can't win against Trump because he's a socialist. Um, Florida's numbers, uh, Biden's got 61%. Arizona, Biden's got 42%, uh, with 69% in. And that's probably going to change, but not significantly. Um, I'm having a hard time believing the numbers too. You know, except for the fact that I know that coronavirus has completely thrown Bernie Sanders' campaign for a loop as far as, how to exercise the strengths of his campaigning style. And also when before the first Super Tuesday, when all the other candidates dropped out and backed Joe Biden, uh, that really was something that Sanders's campaign could not counter. You know, let's see. Oh, Spurgleberry Farm says I should protect my toilet paper by printing out an official looking "This House in Quarantine" poster and posting it on my door. Um, that would work. Popcorn Power says you think no one will rob you, but restaurants and bars have been shut down and employees fired. What do you think happens when paycheck employees are fired and desperate? Good point. Good point. Um, I do know that with Misty and I being here all the time, doing telehealth for our jobs, it's much less likely that we would be burgled because people whose cars are not in front of their house, signifying that they might be away from home, they might be burgled first. And I think burglars in general would realize that if everyone's quarantined and has to stay in their homes with martial law, then chances are most of the houses that they want to go burgle will have people in them. So, you know, it'd be way easier for somebody to just go on like Nextdoor.com or Craigslist and say, look, I got no toilet paper. And if you got some extras, I'm willing to trade this, or this, you know? And then they'd get toilet paper. And that's if restocking didn't happen at like King Supers or Walmart, you know? Another way to do it is wait in line for an hour at 6 a.m. at Walmart. They keep on coming up with more toilet paper and it just sells out really quick. But people are getting toilet paper. Seems to me that waiting in line for an hour is a little bit easier than trying to burgle a house while people are still in it. Popcorn Power is talking about an R6 rating, and at this point, I'm going to say that I do not know what he's talking about, and I am outside of the scope of what I know. So I'm thinking this replicability rating of R6 um, means that this coronavirus is never going away until at least enough people die that it kind of quarantines itself. Chrissy says Italy also has an older population. Okay. Alan says 12 to 14,000 people dead in America. That's what his prediction is. Well, right now it's up to 100. And if the models I saw panned out, I was looking at numbers of like under 2 million, but more than a million. So I hope you're right. I hope that it's only in the thousands. That would be beautiful to me if that were true. But given how virulent this thing is, um, yeah, I'm looking at the numbers I'm looking at. I'm like, no, this is like everyone I know is going to have to be a grief counselor. Well, whether they've been trained to be a therapist or not, they're going to have to talk to somebody who just had a loved one pass away. Everyone will be a grief counselor when this thing is done. Brian J says, any numbers from Russia yet? They say none. On the Johns Hopkins website, no Russian numbers at all. It's weird. We have Chinese numbers, and we don't trust the Chinese numbers, but at least they give us numbers, and the numbers keep going up at least a little bit. Russia, no, we don't have any. We have vodka. It keeps us safe. Was that racist? Fuck them. Popcorn Power says Social Security just got solved with the boomer apocalypse. Yeah, and I challenged some millennial people today on the appropriateness of the term boomer remover. And some people got a chuckle, and some people said, oh my God, that is so wrong. Just the fact that that term exists. Alan says everyone's dead in Africa. We still haven't heard it yet. Well, see, you could have 1 million people die in Africa and then like 100 white people die in America. What do you think Americans are going to hear about? We're still fucking racists. Let's see. Chrissy says, does an 80-year-old really need another 10 years? Um, I don't know that need is part of the equation. In Italy, they have to do that math every day, and they have to make those kinds of decisions. But outside of the pandemic, I mean, if you're 80, I guess it depends on how much of your faculties are left, whether or not you might want another 10 years. I have heard of 80-year-old people who are just waiting for that day where they'll be able to go to heaven and meet their spouse or whatnot. Um, People that are basically cheering on death as it arrives. But I don't know that I would be that kind of person until I lost my mind. I'd have to be, you know, pretty senile to start thinking in those sort of ways. As I am right now, I'd want to have every minute of life that I could have. Alan said, watch out, it's the TP hoarding gang. you know. Courtney said the three main topics on this channel right now are politics, virus, and toilet paper. And unfortunately, yes, we are still talking about the toilet paper. Um, Hillary says there's a whistleblower asking for an investigation in Texas. You know what? After the first few times that Bernie was screwed, I think it kind of created a chain reaction to where a lot of the states, there was no real screw in the works. They just saw that Biden had a lot of support coalescing behind him, and they realized that that was going to be the winner, and people just like voting for the winner. The person who they think is going to win, rather than the person who uh, actually represents their values, because people like to vote for a winner. And so, um, yeah, I think Biden outspending, Bernie Sanders outspending Joe Biden in Texas by so much money, um, and still coming up short. I think what happened was when Bloomberg outspent Bernie, with 50 million versus Bernie's 500,000. I think a lot of what Bloomberg was saying was actually pointed at Bernie. I don't know this for sure, but I think that just campaigning at all, I think Bloomberg shifted a lot of those races in a way that maybe Bernie would have been a lot better if he could have made some noise over the giant roar of the Bloomberg campaign. So even then, like, for Bloomberg to spend 50 million in that state, get a bunch of delegates on Super Tuesday, and then for him to just endorse Joe Biden like right away, um, I consider it something that just gets around campaign finance laws. His money was tossed around in a way that really fucked up the election process. Popcorn Paris says, do you think the pandemic will have an effect on the election of the candidates beyond one of them dropping dead because of this? I don't. I do. I do. I think it's a crisis, just like a war. So we're going to want to keep the incumbent. And uh, Bernie couldn't campaign the way he usually would by rallying and having grassroots activists knocking door to door. So, yes, I think it already has affected this election cycle. Hillary says Biden can't win against Trump. I would tend to agree. Um, Given the current climate of things, I think you're right. And I also think that I am one of those people who thinks that Biden and Trump are similar enough that the real election for me is between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. So the nomination process, to me, when Sanders doesn't win, when he drops out and eventually endorses Biden, to me, that's like most of what I would want to vote for gone off the table. Then it becomes lesser of two evils for me. And I'm not as passionate about Biden, you know. Everything that he says about healthcare is just basically leaving the insurance's foot in the door to keep on making profits off of people's pain. So, yeah, with me not being the only one who feels this way, and I'm not like strictly Bernie bro or Bernie or bust, you know. Um, I'm just saying I'm not as passionate about Biden, and if I'm not, then that means that there's a lot of people who are Bernie or bust who just, they showed up to vote for Bernie and they're not voting for anybody else because they're not going to settle for anything less. People are arguing in the chat about whether or not we have socialism. Somehow I have 16 viewers at 1 o'clock in the fucking morning. Uh, this Poseidon says the whole primary process is ridiculous. Biden's life-saving victory in South Carolina, for example. So what? No Democrat can win that state in November. Good point. Also, no Democrat has gone on to win the presidency without winning at least uh, the Iowa caucuses or New Hampshire, you know, and Biden didn't win either. So things aren't looking good. Chris, I don't know what you're trying to say there, but you said, I believe I read many articles where Denmark says, stop saying we're social. um, Larry says, Iceland does not control the markets. Denmark does not control the markets. Wow. Poseidon says Russians don't eat pangolins. That's why there are zero cases. Uh, I saw the Putin term limit, Corny, how it gets reset if he just like switches places with the prime minister and the president. Uh, he can get another set of terms. That is so crazy that they're still controlling the country, but they have to do a little dance like that, and people go along with it. Chris C says, "Why do you like socialism? I would exploit the hell out of it. I would start a YouTube channel where I sit on my couch all day while people go to work and pay for my bills." Um, I will tell you that, Chris, I might have been a failure in that respect, but for a while, that was a dream of mine. Like 2010 to 2000, mid 2012, I would actually had that as a goal, to maybe start supporting myself through YouTube. I can tell you, not the place that I would tell people to go for a career. Um, it's basically like winning the lottery. Those people who are able to uh, use YouTube to pay their bills, even then, say one bad thing, like say one wrong thing that you might not even realize is very wrong. Cancel culture will get you, and it will hit you in the pocketbook. And they love big, soft targets. They love to hit people who weren't expecting it at all so that they can prove that anyone can be more woke. Um, yeah. So I'm just going to see what Social Blade says about me right now. So there are 800,000 channels better than me in subscribers, and 1,200,000 ish channels that have better video views than me, like more total video views. So there's like a million people, right? Better channels than I have. I've been doing this for 10 years now, right? And I'm not doing much uh that isn't just the same as other channels, except for I haven't put in the production polish, right? But how much of a multiplier is that production polish? Because I've seen channels with tons of production polish and editing after the fact, and like, you know some really professional put on shows, and they have shit for views. So I don't know. What I tell you is the fact that Uh, the majority of kindergarten boys want to be YouTube stars for a career instead of something like astronauts. It says a lot. So I guess the idea that free money for just talking and speaking your mind is something that we should all strive for. That is something that has taken root in America. I'm skipping a lot of what you guys are saying because you're just arguing with each other. Spurgleberry Farm says, "What female do you think Biden will pick for the VP?" Um, I've heard a lot of Stacey Abrams. I would hope for Elizabeth Warren to get more of a broad appeal so that he can pull in the Bernie voters, you know, that might go, well, she's pretty close to what we wanted with Bernie. But I don't know. I don't think he wants to actually appeal to the progressive side of the party at all. And Poseidon said Biden actually said he would veto Medicare for all. He just alienated 75% of potential Democratic voters. Yeah, yeah. Then that's why I truly believe that Biden is closer in his politics to Trump than he is to Bernie Sanders. They happen to be under the same umbrella, but they're on opposite ends of that umbrella. And the next umbrella over being Republican Party, he's like really closer to Trump in the way that he would keep insurance companies as a thing in healthcare. Um, and anything that we would want him to pass as far as limiting insurance companies' role in healthcare, he'd always want to argue, you know what, we don't have to be that harsh right away. You know, let's just pull off just a little corner of the band-aid instead of ripping the whole thing off at the same time. Wow, I've got a bunch of comments. Alan says he hasn't heard anything about the primary. You know what? I had to Google it myself. You know, uh, all the news is coronavirus, coronavirus, coronavirus. I don't want to hear coronavirus anymore. Corny still thinks that tagging my name and making it all red is going to make me respond to him. He says there's strong repression in Russia at the moment. Most protests are taken up, are broken up before they start. No, let's just say for argument's sake, it could be that SARS and the flu and everything in previous years where they killed more, like when the swine flu killed like 60,000 Americans, and there was barely a peep out of our media. It could be that the media storm about coronavirus is actually meant to shape the election to be between Trump and Biden instead of Trump and Sanders because it's a way of breaking up protests. If Sanders doesn't win the nomination, there's a lot of people who said that they would like march on Milwaukee, where the Democratic National Convention is going to be this year. And if everyone's quarantined, no one can do that. It could be that, yes, there's going to be like 60,000 dead from the coronavirus, with, no matter what we do, but it could be just, you know, a matter of, does the media want to blow it out of proportion in order to shape the world, because Bernie supporters were so successful for a while that they had to pull out all the stops. It's just a conspiracy theory of mine, but yeah, it's fun to think about. Poseidon says Biden is probably going to pick Maxine Waters. He says she has major sex appeal for the general election. Oh, 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 you went there. Um, yeah, hopefully not. If Biden really wanted to shake things up, um, of course he could pick Bernie Sanders. But if he really, really wanted to shake things up, he would pick AOC, because she actually has more passion behind her uh, followers than any of the rest of the pack. If he's going to pick a woman, um, it'd be her. But then, if he were to die, I don't know that she could take office because she's not old enough. So, I don't know. We'll see. Ryan says he wants to ask what Chris's taxes are for. All right, we're at the end, and I'm over an hour. So Hillary said DNC toadies make their living off the establishment. Of course, they don't want him to win. Um, whether it be all the anxieties of the people I talked to in the day, worried about the coronavirus, or the giant letdown that this primary season has turned into. Um, I think I'm generally just feeling the blahs, and I'm ready to concede that, like, way too quickly. I don't really know that that's exactly what the establishment wants. I don't know that, but feels that way. It feels like the deck is stacked against the actual progressives who actually want to help the world. And there's going to be people who argue that if we had a nationalized universal health care system, that we'd have more people dead instead of less people dead from the coronavirus. you know and I guess we'll see. We will see. I know Trump firing the people who were specialists in responding to epidemics like this probably wouldn't have happened in other administrations. And if we had a single payer universal health care system, I don't know that those positions would exist or not. You know, Just, and I don't measure the value of the idea of universal health care against how well would it do in the worst pandemic ever. I measure it in how does it operate, you know, day to day in normal times, you know, because I know that the healthcare system we have right now ain't fucking working for us. People who have health insurance still don't go to the doctor when they should because they're afraid of the copay and the you know the overall cost even with insurance. So, you know, those are the things I think about more than, what happens now in this like pandemic that's happened just once in my lifetime happens. Uh Year after year I see people not getting the treatment that they need in the current system. And I see a rapacious insurance industry that's trying to keep them from their goal of getting treatment. So, like, even when you go to the doctor, you're not going to get what you want out of it because, the insurance company doesn't want to pay for, you know, grand treatment. They want to say, what can we get away with, you know, substituting in there that's a little bit cheaper? That we can just like get away with paying for that rather than pay for the full treatment that this person could actually benefit from. Poseidon wants to know, is it true Canada's infection rate is much higher than America's? Travel in and out of British Columbia is basically shut down. No, it isn't. But what is true is that uh, countries that can do a more draconian style lockdown of their citizenry stand a better chance at being able to flatten the curve, so to speak, and keep the big rush of cases from hitting their hospitals very hard. So they see that the US squandered their 2 week lead on the information, and they're not going to do the same. More power to them. Brian says house prices these days are insane, and I agree. And I feel a great deal of guilt for feeling good that the stock market is crashing and that the housing market is going to crash right after it, after a glut of homes are opened up by all of the boomers that die and leave behind perfectly good homes. And how I'm probably going to move into one. Feel a little bit of guilt about that, but I've been waiting for a very long time to feel good about low housing prices, and uh, the fact that they got that low by this pandemic is not going to deter me from getting the house that I wanted for so very long. All right, guys, it's past my bedtime. Um, Happy coronavirus days.